Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to do power rankings for SEC Hoops. It is Monday morning on January the 30th. Let's start from the bottom where South Carolina has occupied this spot all year. Let's play some tribute to the Gamecocks because I don't know how you do this. Beating the ACC leader in Clemson, won at Rupp Arena, but also lost by 24 at George Washington, lost by 8 to East Carolina, and has had I don't even know how many 40-point losses or so in the SEC. It's been quite a roller coaster for the Gamecocks.
Yep, one of those seasons. Next. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's been a struggle. We said in the whatever video, the last one we did, give Mark Paris credit. These guys came to play against Georgia on the road. All these games the rest of the way are going to be challenging. But yeah, I mean, just they continue to do what they can, but just obviously some limitations right now there at this season.
We've got a real pillow fight at the bottom here, Blake, between LSU and Ole Miss, and we can't settle it on the court yet. Won't be able to do that till February the 25th when Ole Miss hosts LSU. We split the vote on this, so we've got a tie at 12 between Ole Miss and LSU. Neither team can score. Ole Miss without Matt Morrell, LSU without much of anybody who can score outside of KJ Williams, other than when Adam Miller gets hot or Trey Hannibal, and here we are.
Yep. I had LSU at 12, Ole Miss 13. The only reason for that is I thought LSU had the better SEC win against Arkansas. Ole Miss's SEC win came against South Carolina. Ole Miss may have the better overall win against Florida Atlantic, but that was on November the 11th. So not a lot to say here. Two teams that are struggling mightily. The difference is Ole Miss doesn't have what's the losing streak now at for LSU? 8. Doesn't have an 8-game losing streak. And doesn't have to go to Missouri on Wednesday, then play Alabama at home on Saturday. So, yeah, not been a great slate here for this in the new year for these two teams.
Number 11, Georgia, nearly had a 4-game losing streak. Needed to go to overtime to beat South Carolina. Not much debate on the Bulldogs. They are now 14-7 and 4-4 overall. They'd come off losses at Kentucky, home to Vandy, at Tennessee. So not exactly an easy slate there, but the Bulldogs check in at number 11 with road trips coming up to Auburn and A&M.
Yep, barely beat South Carolina. Gamecocks hit a lot of threes. Georgia just, they have not played great. Let's call it what it is. Past 2 weeks, they've not been playing well. Maybe more than that when you look at some of the other games. But they just got to find more consistent offense and defense, honestly. I think it's both sides. But, yeah, they're not playing great and, got off to a 3-1 start. That helped them in SEC play, and they took care of their business in home games. And, now the last two, they've lost at home to Vanderbilt and barely able to beat South Carolina at home. So that's the only way they're going to get to where they want to go in this league, even to be, near a top half team, not a tournament team by any means. But they got to win their home games, but they don't get one of those until February 7th. They got to go to Auburn and A&M next. So not an easy road ahead here for the Dogs.
We've got Vanderbilt at 10 and Mississippi State at 9, and this is where the computers start to really separate. Computers have got Mississippi State about 35 spots ahead of Vandy. Now, we don't go by the computers. We give our own opinions. We may look at the computers to see what they say, but here's the difference. And I know State is 1-7 in the league, Vandy 3-5, but State has played Alabama twice. It has played Tennessee twice. It also has racked up 3 pretty nice wins over Marquette, TCU, and Utah, which is probably in the tournament if they pick the field today. So we went with the computers and went with the big wins and put State ahead of Vandy because, frankly, if you have Vandy playing State's schedule, it might be 1-7 also.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. She says it's brutal. Mississippi State and LSU have just played brutal schedules here, but give the Bulldogs credit for getting that win against TCU, as we said. Certainly a little bit different without Mike Miles, but it's a win, and it's a win over a top 15 team, and those are always nice to have. And so that was something that really helped this Mississippi State team, I think. And, they got a chance to build a little momentum here. We talked about it probably last week. Their upcoming schedule gets a little more manageable here, at least in the short term. Still, long term, it's not the easiest schedule, but they got South Carolina next, Missouri and LSU both at home. So I think the potential for a 3-game winning streak here, and then a game at Arkansas that should be close, either way. And I like their upcoming schedule. So I think Mississippi State, this is a chance if you can build off the TCU game to start building that resume. And not just that, as we said, it's getting that SEC record
Yeah.
to at least 500, which at 1-7 is going to be a hard thing to do for a team that has had as many struggles offensively as they have. So these are all important games the rest of the way. You can't lose to the bad teams. You got to start picking up some wins against the good ones. They did that against TCU. For Vanderbilt, again, you fully expect every game to be close. It just is the way it works. Not all of them, but you fully expect it to happen. And I know some of these games recently have been, 16-point loss to Kentucky, 12-point loss to Alabama. They beat Arkansas by 13. Some of those games a little bit closer than the score would indicate. But, yeah, it's just, they coming off a tough loss at A&M, and we'll see if they can do the same against an Alabama team that's come off their worst game of the season. So,
Yeah, State has 10 games left, all in conference. Ken Pom has them favored individually in 8 of those. Now,
they got to win all of them.
with the win probabilities and stuff like that, it comes out to an expected record of 7-11. But just saying, there are plenty of opportunities for State to pick up wins and build an NCAA tournament resume, as daunting as that 1-7 start makes it. Okay, for lack of a better idea, we've got Florida at 8. Computers pretty consistently have Florida inside the top 50, somewhere in that 45 to 50 range for the most part. I don't agree, but for what it's worth, that's what they say. We've got the Gators at 12-9 with the 5-3 mark in the league, but it's frankly been kind of underwhelming, it feels like to me. But I get the wins have come against Georgia, LSU, Missouri, that one at home, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. I guess
yeah, but come
winning
on.
at
I mean, they're
Starkville,
all
beating Missouri at home. Okay.
3 of their SEC losses are all by 3 points or less. So, this is a
Okay.
team that's not that far off from 8-0. Not to say they would
That's
be
why the
8-0 right
computers
now.
like them. I've
Yeah,
undersold them. That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to keep that in mind with Florida. They've been a couple plays away from winning 2 of these. Maybe I don't remember exactly how a couple of these played out. We've seen so many games since then, but they've had their chances. I mean, the A&M game, I think they had, last play, maybe both of them. I don't remember exactly how they played out at the end, but yeah, I mean, their wins, maybe not, anything just to pop out at you, but their SEC record is, with a play here or there, they could be 7-1 right now. And but disappointing performance at Kansas State. Now they get the Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama trio coming up next, which all going to be challenges. But this is where for Florida, NCAA tournament conversation, this game against Tennessee on Wednesday, if they can find a way, to get one like that completely changes the direction here for them. Then again, road games at Kentucky and Alabama. So I think you can say right now, this is the most important 3-game stretch of the entire season for Florida because we've talked about their schedule. After these 3 games, there's not many games left that are going to do a whole lot for their NCAA tournament resume. So I think if they can get 2 of these, then our conversation
if they get 2 of those, that's probably, and I guess we can go into more of this on Friday.
Yeah.
Florida can get 2 of those 3. That's an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, because again, I always say, why are they an NCAA tournament team at that point? Because they played good teams and they've lost to them. That's all that matters to the net. I'm half joking, but they don't have any bad losses yet, and they're not going to have another bad loss opportunity until February 11th. So, but at some point, your record can't be, whatever. Like you can't have 16 losses or something. So they may be another one of those SEC teams like we've seen over the years in Alabama, Vanderbilt, gets up to that 14 loss point somewhere in there, and you're still looking at the resume saying, well, they've got a shot. So yeah, big stretch coming up here for the Gators.
I guess this is what I've held against Florida. I'm looking at Ken Pom. Florida's best Ken Pom win out of the league was Kennesaw State, which is 142. Literally lost every game against good teams. Now, some of those were close. Florida Atlantic was a 2-point loss. Xavier was a 7-point loss.
Which neither of those look anywhere near as bad as they looked at the time. So
No, and Auburn is a 3-point loss too. You mentioned the close SEC games. The computers reward you for close losses, and I'm not saying that's invalid when it comes to predictive stuff. But
you got to field the
anyway,
tournament, right? That's what the bracketologists always say. You got to have enough
right?
teams to put in there, and you have to, if Florida's resume stacks up better, even with kind of a weird, setup, then hey, you got to put a team in there somewhere. So
Yeah, my pet peeve, just quickly on the stuff, is the weak bottom of the bubble. I'm like, wait, when have you ever heard someone say it's a strong bubble? Like every team in that range has got flaws. Just a
well,
pet
and I
peeve of
mean,
mine.
hey, yeah, right. But just think about when we expand the tournament, then we're gonna have even more of a weaker
Mm.
bubble. Can't wait for that. So
Yeah, I can't wait to start arguing about
we should have been
4 and
talking about
12
Georgia
Big
and
12 teams.
LSU, their NCAA tournament resumes in the
Oh,
expanded
won't
field.
that be
That's
a
what we'd be talking
dandy? I
about
mean,
right now. So yeah.
that wouldn't water down the field at all.
Hmm.
Okay, before we get to the top half, a quick word from our sponsor, BROTHROW. Betting $11 to win 10 stinks. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states because it's not the house. Bettors have a fair chance at winning. It is the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free sign-up process that gets you in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. Get in the game today and ask to join our private group once you are there. Okay, top half. We had some questions here. We went with Arkansas at 7 and Kentucky at 6. You could probably argue either way. Both have had disappointing seasons for different reasons. Both have got a lot of basketball left to play, too.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have a strong opinion one way or the other on these two right now, thought our opinion was getting stronger on Kentucky. They lose that game to Kansas. As I said, I'm probably not as disappointed as you would be in that one, but I think there's still it's more in the realm of Kentucky's overall picture now as they move forward. And then for Arkansas, come up short at Baylor, but again, I came out feeling okay about Arkansas too in that one, just based on how they played. So yeah, I mean, look, we said Arkansas just needs to get that SEC record back to 500 quickly, and I think they've got a chance to do that this week. A&M at home at South Carolina, and then you kind of get back to that even slate the rest of the way, and have a chance to really build up your resume a bit. And certainly the Nick Smith question still hangs out there, but I think everybody knows where we lean on that at this point. For Kentucky, again, they just need to find some more good wins, and they'll have some chances left. Maybe not as many as you would think. As I said before, I think Kentucky needs to be a big Florida fan because they've still got 2 games left against Florida. They got 2 left against Arkansas. They need to root for Arkansas too to continue to prove their stock. And then they've got Tennessee and Auburn too as well. So yeah, 2 teams here that are kind of on that line of look, it's to the point now where both of these teams need to sort of take off in the right direction. And I think both have opportunities to do that. It's just, can they do it consistently? That's probably still the question with both of these teams.
Okay, next up, you could argue Auburn as high as 3. We've got them at 5. Auburn really has had a nice season, but not a great one. The win over Northwestern looking a little better. The win over Arkansas, that's 2 wins against teams that would be headed to the NCAA tournament, I think, if you played it today, probably. But not a lot of other great wins. Of course, Auburn hasn't been awful either by any stretch. The A&M game the other night was disappointing, and maybe we're holding that too much against them because Auburn had played really well before that. But the Tigers are around 5, and it really doesn't seem like the ceiling is high for this Auburn team. And we can talk about this maybe more in bracketology on Friday. Just doesn't seem like to me that this team has as big a ceiling as some other Bruce Pearl teams and maybe not as high as we thought coming in.
I've been saying that for almost 3 months now. I mean, I think that's just the way it is. Um, that's just the honest opinion. I just think that's how it works. Like they don't have the same type of ceiling, I think. Now again, we've seen some teams get hot in the tournament that happen to click at the right time. I think you just, for me, I continue to go back to the shooting element, the sometimes tendency to turn the ball over a little bit, and but their defense is going to keep them in games, and they're going to have a shot. It's just I think you kind of saw against what it was the A&M game. As I keep saying, like, Auburn's a team I think right now they can't afford to make that valiant comeback because they don't have. I don't think they can shoot their way back into games, and so that I think is the issue you run into is you just have to be so great defensively because they need to keep it close because I just don't think they get down double digits. Sometimes teams like to try to press and press. I mean, I guess you could say that in a couple different ways, but in terms of like, all right, we got to score quick. Let's take more threes. That'll get us there quicker than twos. And I just don't, consistently, we just haven't seen that from Auburn. So their biggest stretch comes very soon because, you've got games at Tennessee, A&M, Alabama at home, Missouri at home. Those 4 games right there. Now, this is assuming they beat Georgia at home. It's huge, Chris. Like, that's just a
Yeah.
huge stretch for this Auburn team because this is the chance, for them to start. I keep saying this, and you may disagree, but like Alabama and Tennessee still, in my opinion, are just the ultimate locks right now. Everybody else can still play their way out of this thing.
Yes. Completely
And
agree.
I hate to say that, but Auburn 16-5, and the chances of them playing their way out of this, I think, are slim. But if we're just looking at it from a reality standpoint, it's there. Like if you're just looking at the numbers, like it's not where it's been in recent years. We're like, all right, well, these 5 SEC teams are locks. Not that way this year. But I do think Auburn will make the tournament because their schedule is getting tougher. They will win some of these games, I think, against tough competition. The road ones are going to be tough because again, they still got to go on the road to Tennessee, A&M, Vanderbilt. They got to go to Vanderbilt, which is never easy, as we said. At Kentucky, at Alabama, still got home games against Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri. So schedule picks up a lot for Auburn here. Let's see how they handle it because that will, I think, determine exactly where they sit, heading into the SEC tournament.
Yeah, and again, we will unpack more of what I'm about to say on Friday, but Missouri getting close to not lock status, but let's just say the Tigers go through the next 3 games. LSU at Mississippi State, South Carolina, the first and last at home. Missouri at that point would be 19-5, no bad losses. The losses are all to top 50 Ken Palm teams. I don't think Missouri's got a loss outside of quad 1 or quad 2, and maybe not outside of quad 1. Point being, the Tigers, and let's not forget, the Tigers had some personnel issues with guys missing games that if it gets to be dicey, the NCAA would think would take that into consideration, perhaps. But in any case, Dennis Gates' team keeps rolling along and lands at number 4 in our power rankings. And frankly, well, it would have been hard to put them ahead of A&M, given that A&M is 7-1 in the league, as Missouri is 4-4.
And they beat them.
But I think it would have been defensible, though. I mean,
I don't think so.
Okay,
because A&M's beat them by 18, and like I just don't.
There was that. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, I don't think I could defend that. I think there's a clear top 3 at this point. Then I think you're debating Auburn, Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, and I still would put Arkansas in there. I think because I think you can. And look, we're debating. I'm not debating from a resume standpoint. I'm just debating of like a power ranking standpoint, and I think those can be a little bit different. But Missouri, from a power ranking standpoint, is playing really well right now, and I think you take the Alabama game, you say, well, they just lost by 21 a week and a half ago. Well, they didn't have Kobe Brown in that game, so I think I'm not saying they would have won, but I think that completely changes things if they have Kobe Brown and they can, probably don't lose by 21, in my opinion. They do still have the road losses to, Arkansas, A&M, and Florida. But as of right now, those aren't bad losses. Like you said, they're 3-5 in quad 1, right? Everything else, clean sheet to this point, outside of quad 1. That's the most important thing. So this is where, for Missouri to be fine, it's avoiding the losses to the bad teams. I guess in a sense, the good news is, the next 2 bad teams are going to play LSU and South Carolina, both in Columbia, and the Missouri Columbia for the South Carolina game. So yeah, I mean the Iowa State win was huge for Missouri. That's why I bumped them up in my power rankings because I said I thought they had a chance to win. I didn't know they were going to win like that because Iowa State's really impressed me this season. So if I'm overvaluing their win and maybe undervaluing Auburn, it's a power ranking. It's what it is. But I I was okay moving Missouri up to the top 4 now because with Mosley, Brown, Hodge, I keep saying it. That trio, I think, is going to give them a chance to win a lot of games the rest of the way because it's going to be hard to stop all of them. And
Yeah.
defensively, I think they're they're not perfect still, but they're getting better on that end of the floor, and that's all that matters. So, yep, Missouri cracks the top 4 here.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little something just for fun. This is how murky the middle 50% roughly of the league is. If you left it up to the computers, and this is an average of Pomeroy, Torvik, Sagarin, BPI, net. Arkansas 23, Auburn 30, A&M 36, Kentucky 37, Florida 47, Missouri 48, Mississippi State 54. So between 5 of those teams right there, 5 of the teams ranked between 36 and 54 nationally. A&M, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Mississippi State. That is how close this middle part of the league is. Again, I have my opinions. I definitely would not put Arkansas 3, and I wouldn't put Auburn 4. We've already ranked those teams. And some of the computer numbers for Arkansas certainly are going to be with players that they no longer have, which has an effect on things. But just if you're wondering what the computers say, that is what the computers say. If you're wondering what we say at number 1, we have no consensus here. You had Tennessee at 1. I had
Well, hang
Alabama
on.
at
We
1.
did say we had A&M at 3, right?
I thought we did. If not, let's clarify that we did.
Yeah. So A&M's 3, and like we said, I think the top 3 is clear. Now we'll talk
Yeah.
about the order, but I think A&M, yeah, clearly the third best team, and
Based on
maybe
the 7-1 conference record, you have to put them in 3.
yeah, and again, overall, maybe you look at some of those losses in non-conference, say, whoa, well, doesn't matter. We're to this point now where this is our power ranking for
Yep.
this week, and they are clearly deserving of this number 3 spot. And hey, they can continue. I mean, again, they're right there. I mean, they're still moving in the right direction. So yeah, A&M definitely the most improved team in the past month. So
The Alabama Tennessee thing. The
yep,
first time I went through this, I put Tennessee at 1, and then I flipped them. Alabama is the only unbeaten team in league play so far. And if you want to play the bad loss game, Tennessee lost by 12 to Colorado, and that's been two and
that
a
was
half
the game
months
2.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Lost at Arizona, lost to Kentucky at home. None of those are bad losses. Alabama has been the better offensive team. When in doubt, I tend to lean teams that can make buckets a little bit more. You could put Tennessee at 1 and Alabama at 2. The other thing is Alabama's quality wins are much better than Tennessee's, clearly. Not that Tennessee has bad wins. And again, just because one team has beaten more quality teams doesn't mean that the other team can't be better. Some of schedule stuff is fluky and things like that. I get it. But I chose to keep Alabama at 1. You elevated Tennessee at 2. I have a feeling a week from now we'll have a better idea of what the right move is, because what I want to see is how Alabama reacts to just an awful performance at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I did. I flipped Tennessee to 1 this week. I think it's just the stunning aspect of the Alabama loss to Oklahoma
Yeah.
was probably enough, and I felt like maybe just rewarding Tennessee for their recent play. And yes, but at any time you do that with Tennessee, you're gonna have what? You're gonna have that Kentucky game in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And but again, this is a power ranking. It's not a science. And I mean, I thought the Alabama loss at Oklahoma was bad enough that I'm just like, whoo. But we can't ignore the fact that, again, up until the Mississippi State game, Alabama had won every single SEC game by double figures. But if you look at it, if you remember too, Tennessee's not exactly been that bad in SEC play either. Now, the schedule hasn't been very tough to this point, but they've taken care of their business at times the way they need to take care of their business. And I always leave the Vanderbilt caveat in there. Like, I'm not going to discount you for only a single digit win against Vanderbilt because a lot of people are in that same boat. But
Yeah.
I decided to move Tennessee up a bit here. I even think back to the Arizona game. Yes, they lost it, but I don't know. I thought Tennessee was right there with a chance to win. Um, for 1 week, I'll move Tennessee up for now. But I think for me, it's more of a reactionary thing to Alabama hasn't looked great the past 2 games, and specifically the past 1 game. And is
Yeah.
that an outlier, or is that just, you know, is that maybe a trend that's starting from here? Even great teams sometimes have a stretch during the season where all of a sudden things just don't work for them. Um, are we hitting that point for Alabama? Like I said in the earlier or the other video we did, we will find out, I think, this week, because if they come out and to dominate Vanderbilt, dominate LSU, Alabama probably returns to number 1 next week for me. But for now, I'm gonna give the nod to the Vols here for just a minute, just to kind of, reward them for what I think has been a pretty stellar season, and the fact that I said earlier I could make the argument in terms of just complete teams with everybody healthy now, which I
Yeah.
feel like this is the first week that's happened in a while.
That's a good point.
They're right
That's a
there to
good
me on
point.
par with Alabama, if not better. Like I said, just because I think that was the one thing that we've been waiting on, is just getting everybody back for Tennessee. And the fact is, they're here now. The Texas scoreline too, let's be honest, that's a little deceiving, I think. Tennessee in complete control of that
Yep.
game. And so I'll give the Vols the nod this week.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was literally almost a coin
Yeah.
flip. I leaned big wins. Here's the other thing. Remember this time last year? What was it? Kansas went to Lawrence, or excuse me, Kentucky went to Lawrence and beat Kansas
Yeah.
by 30 points. Kentucky ends up flaming out in the first round against St. Peter's. Kansas wins the whole thing.
College
So I
basketball,
mean,
right?
yeah, that's the point. I tried not to react too much to one game. I will say this: Alabama's immaturity at times, and maybe I'm nitpicking this as the number 1 seed, right? They're a little young. Tennessee's not. Tennessee's a pretty mature team. That could be a separator in the coming weeks.
Well, I mean, Tennessee, yeah, I mean, like, you can talk about some of the guys that, like for Alabama, Alabama's still a team that's going to lean on a lot of freshmen, because the freshmen are really good. And, you're going to lean on Brandon Miller. You're going to lean on Jaden Bradley, Noah Clowney, Rylan Griffin, those guys. I mean, you're going to lean on a lot of underclassmen. Let's call it what it is. I mean, Charles Bediakov's a sophomore, right? Amari Burnett's sophomore. Like, you're still leaning on a lot of young guys here. And so maybe, and that's why I look at the Oklahoma game, and maybe you do kind of question, well, are we just overreacting to a team that is going to have one of those games somewhere? Because I do think that's just what happens sometimes in the course of a season. Or is it more than that? And that's where this week I think we'll see what's their mindset. How does that kind of, unfold there? But then you look at a Tennessee, I think, just looking at, like, Zakai Ziegler's a sophomore, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, to me, that guy's like
Feels
a
like he's a
senior.
senior.
It's like
Yeah.
the way he plays is like he's a senior, in my opinion, because it's just how he operates. Vescovi's a senior, Kamla's a senior, James is a senior, Key's a senior, grad transfer, whatever. Julian Phillips, a freshman, of course, but Plastics, he's a senior. I like that about this Tennessee team. And again, we can have the debate about who goes furthest in the NCAA tournament, but that's not what this is. This is a power ranking, and I think as of right this second, the Alabama loss was glaring enough and a little concerning to the point to where right now, if you put them on a neutral floor today, Chris, and that's kind of what I do sometimes with my power rankings, is if you play the game right now at 10:15 a.m. or whatever it is we're recording here, I'm probably giving the nod to Tennessee. And so
Yeah.
that's just kind of the way I did it. But again, we're splitting hairs between what I think are clearly the top 2 teams in the league. And who knows? Maybe A&M, the way they're playing, starting to inch closer to these two. Maybe not from an overall resume standpoint, but the way they're playing, maybe
Yeah.
don't sleep on A&M getting even closer to these two right now.
Yeah, I still don't think they'll crack the top 2, but that's a good point. I mean, look, let's go back to Tennessee's losses. It's not like the Colorado loss was a bad loss, and for people, it's a neutral site game, but that was in Nashville, where Tennessee had the overwhelming home court advantage. Although Tennessee had 3 hours to travel to that too.
Tennessee
Losing at
shot
Arizona,
78 threes too. So
yeah, that is true. Losing at Arizona, no shame. Losing to Kentucky in Knoxville. Kentucky's a borderline NCAA tournament team, but everyone knows Kentucky on the right night has got enough to get it together and win games, which it did that night. So, anyway, we're
it's like
probably
which bad
splitting
loss
hairs,
do you
and
value more? You know, it's like, do
Yeah.
you value Tennessee's bad loss on November 13th against Colorado, or do you value Alabama's bad loss on January 28th against Oklahoma? Like, should we
Which
weigh
was
one
also on
more?
the road.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know. It's again, like
Although
you
it
say,
was
we're
like a
splitting hairs.
23-point loss that felt more like a 30-point loss. But anyway.
Well, they were down 30 at one point. That's why I was a little concerned about Alabama in that one. But again, we'll see if that's just a game that happens throughout the course of a season, or if Alabama struggles to beat Vanderbilt, or some way struggles to lose at LSU, which I think from a matchup standpoint, maybe outside of South Carolina, it was like one of the most lopsided matchups because of the strength and weaknesses of LSU. Yeah, like that's when I think we start to raise our eyebrows a bit about is Alabama hitting one of those stretches. But for now, I'm not overreacting because I think Alabama's spiraling. I'm more reacting to the fact that I think Tennessee maybe slides a little ahead of them just for this week.
Yeah, and I think you might be right. I lean more on I leaned on resume with this one.
No, and that's fine.
But if you want to go play them on a neutral floor right now, who wins? I suspect you're right. But anyway, I guess it makes it more interesting when we split the vote. And we also
Yes.
just spent a record amount of time on
I mean, what would this be, Chris? If we
dissecting
just went,
dissecting
you
a
know what, all
bad
right,
loss from
14,
2.5 months
13,
ago.
12,
Right.
11, 10, 9, 8. All right, we're done. See you later. Like,
Embrace the uncertainty.
This is good. So, yeah.
We'll have more uncertainty coming your way. We'll give picks for Tuesday and Wednesday's
ultimate
games.
Uncertainty.
Ultimate uncertainty.
Us picking games.
That's right. Have some football content coming. Have lots of baseball content coming. Best way to catch all that, hit the subscribe button. And if you like this, hit the like button. That helps us too. He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll see you again soon.